Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into a pretty radical idea from a 2014 white paper, an idea that basically asks if the entire foundation of online advertising is, well, built on a lie.
All right, so let's just kick things off with a huge question. For decades, advertisers have been chasing millions and millions of online impressions. But what if they're paying for ads that nobody ever actually sees? That's the exact problem that sparked a 7-year research journey to find a better, more honest way to measure what really matters.
So, before we can jump into the new solution, we've got to understand exactly why the old way of doing things is so broken. It all starts with the one metric that pretty much built the digital world as we know it.
And that metric is CPM, or cost per thousand impressions. You've probably heard of it. It's an old model, really borrowed from TV and print ads. An advertiser pays a fee every time their ad is supposedly shown 1,000 times. For a long time, it was just the simplest way to sell ad space online.
Now, look, on the one hand, CPM is cheap. That makes it seem perfect for these huge campaigns. But, and this is a huge but, the source material points out the massive downside. Advertisers are getting billed for ads that are technically displayed, sure, but they might be at the bottom of a web page nobody ever scrolls to. Or they're in a browser tab that's just running in the background. The end result? An experience that annoys us, the users, and delivers incredibly low click-through rates. We're talking less than 0.5%. That's really not great. Okay, so this is the exact problem that led inventor Ahmad Muradi to suggest a really fundamental shift. He basically said, forget counting these fleeting, often unseen impressions. What if we valued something way more universal? What if we valued attention, measured in simple units of time?
And the alternative is called cost per time, or CPT. The concept is actually beautifully simple. Instead of paying for 1,000 quick glimpses, an advertiser pays for their ad to just be present on a site for a specific amount of time. Right away, the focus shifts from the quantity of views to the duration of real exposure. So the white paper argues this model just makes more sense because it's built on 4 key pillars. You need the human, that's you, the viewer, and the brand, the advertiser. But for a real connection, for relevance to happen, you need exposure over time. And for that connection to actually stick, you need frequency, you need repetition. As the author says, time is the essential thread that weaves all 4 of these things together. And this quote, this really gets to the heart of the whole philosophy. The author points out something so obvious we forget it. No matter who you are, where you live, we all get 24 hours in a day. It is an undeniable, universal law. And that, in theory, makes time the most objective and fair unit of measure you could possibly use for anything, especially advertising.
Okay, so that's the big idea. Sounds good in theory, right? But how does paying for time actually work in practice? I mean, how do you guarantee that somebody is actually paying attention during that time you paid for?
Well, a 2013 patent application for something called interactive CPT, or iCPT, laid out the whole practical business model. Now, I know this flowchart looks a little complex, but it shows the whole journey. If you follow the numbers, you see it kicks off at step 1 with the client placing an order. Then it moves into the virtual venue where the ad gets displayed. And the process ends over on the right with detailed reports getting sent back to that client. It's a totally complete closed-loop system.
But you know what? We can boil that whole complicated chart down to 3 pretty simple steps. First, an advertiser buys a chunk of what the patent calls ad view time. Second, their ad becomes a digital billboard inside some kind of interactive virtual space, like a video chat room. And finally, the advertiser gets super detailed analytics on exactly who saw the ad and for how long.
And this slide is where it all clicks. This is where you see the idea literally jump off the page. On the left, you've got the basic sketch from the patent filing. It's just a blueprint, right? Boxes and labels. But on the right, you see how that blueprint becomes a real user experience. The digital billboard ad holder from the sketch is now a Starbucks ad, seamlessly built into the background of a video call. This is where the theory becomes a real product.
The secret sauce here, the real key to this whole model, is the guaranteed captive audience. Because the ad is the unmissable background for a live, face-to-face digital chat, you can be absolutely sure it's being seen for the entire time. And that is how this model directly solves that classic problem of paying for ads that nobody ever sees.
So let's zoom out. Let's talk about the big picture. Beyond just advertising metrics, what does this shift in thinking really mean for our digital world?
At its core, it represents a huge shift, a move away from just counting shallow and, let's be honest, often meaningless impressions, and toward valuing something much deeper, real, focused human attention. It's a change from a numbers game to a quality game.
And that leaves us with one last thing to chew on. The entire concept is built on the idea that our time is our most precious non-renewable resource. So in an online world that's basically designed to fracture our focus into a million little pieces, maybe the most radical idea of all is to simply value 1 minute of someone's undivided attention. What do you think about that?